Hello everybody, this is Callum from Grid Talk Global here, and today it is opinion day and time to trigger you all in the comments down below, because it is time to grade every single F1 driver this season so far. So, we're looking good, feel fresh, let's talk F1. The 2024 season has been a lot more enjoyable and chaotic than I think anyone expected, especially during the first few races of the season. We literally saw in the first few races Max Verstappen dominate to a victory by 22 seconds ahead of second place, which was his teammate Sergio Perez. But since that moment, we have had 6 different winners from 4 different teams, and those are obviously Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, George Russell, and the most recent F1 winner, Lewis Hamilton. With this also came Lando Norris finally getting his first victory in Miami, Leclerc finally breaking the Monaco curse. At last he finally won his home Grand Prix, and Lewis Hamilton getting the win after 945 days. But let's be honest, it hasn't been smooth sailing for every single driver on the grid this season, Perez. And so today I'm going to be grading every single driver from 1 to 10 and also give an audience rating. I put them out on my story and I've just averaged it out. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, so let's get to it. So it's time to start off with the Ferrari pair. We're going to start off with Carlos Sainz. For this season so far, I'm going to give Carlos Sainz an 8.5. Sainz has been a very consistent driver this season. I think one of the most consistent drivers on the grid this season. He has 1 win to his name, which was in Australia, and he also has 5 different podiums this season out of the 12 races so far. Also, to put it in perspective, in the first 7 races he didn't even finish outside the top 5, which is a very impressive stat, and he's still very close to second, only 1 point behind Charles Leclerc. But I think an 8.5 is very fair for Sainz. I feel like he's had a few iffy races here and there, but overall has remained very solid all season. Not quite a 9 for me, but very consistent, and I still believe he's going to get a few more podiums, possibly even 1 more win this season if Ferrari can sort out their car again. Charles Leclerc this season, I'm going to give an 8.5 as well, the same score as Sainz. Now, before Canada, it was arguable he was one of the best drivers on the grid, easily at least second place behind Max Verstappen. I mean, his consistency to be able to get top 4 consistently, even with him finishing like 8th place in qualifying, was tremendous to see. Before Canada, he never even finished outside of the top 4, constantly getting good podiums. He got a win in Monaco at last, his home Grand Prix, and was just remaining very consistent and was easily second place at the time. But we have to look at the last 4 races. It has been a disaster for Leclerc the last 4 races. He DNF'd at Canada, obviously the same as Sainz, and also missed out on points in Austria and Silverstone, finishing 11th and 14th respectively. This is whilst Carlos Sainz was getting some valuable points for the team. I mean, Ferrari, they're barely holding on to second place as it is, with McLaren right on their tails as well. In races so far, they're currently 5-5 in races. I'm not including the one where they both DNF'd and also when Sainz had his appendix removed. It's not like he DNF'd that race, he literally just did not do the race, so they're 5-5 in races. I think at the peak Leclerc was better, but consistency I have to go with Carlos Sainz this season, and there's literally like 1 point in them in the table. I think Leclerc's on 155 and Sainz is on 154. It's somewhere around that. So I think an 8.5 for both drivers is very well deserved. The audience gave Carlos Sainz an overall of an 8, and they gave Charles Leclerc the overall of a 9. It's time to go to my favourite green highlighting team, Sauber, now, and I'm going to start with Valtteri Bottas. Valtteri Bottas, I'm going to give a 5 out of 10 for this season. Now, you might think this is a bit high of a grade, and I can see your point, but I'm also going to give my point. In the first 3 to 4 races this season, it was arguable that Bottas should have been given some points. If it wasn't for the 54-second pit stop and the 32-second pit stop, Bottas was on for some points, at least in the 10th position in 2 separate races, but these pit stops have definitely stopped him from getting valuable points to Sauber, especially when they're fighting like Williams at the back of the grid. He's currently 11-1 against Zhou in qualifying, absolutely destroying him in qualifying, and 7-5 in races against Zhou as well. Unfortunately, in the last 3 races, he hasn't finished above the position of 15th, which does make sense considering how bad the Sauber car is. So if you take all those things into consideration, I think a 5 out of 10 is a fair rating for him. But we're going to move on to Zhou now, and I've been a little bit harsher here. So Zhou Guan Yu, I'm going to give a 3 out of 10. This may sound harsh given that I gave Bottas a 5, but I just don't think Zhou has impressed me at all this season, in my opinion. He drove well in Bahrain and China, but apart from that, he's finished 15th or below in 8 different races. That's 8 out of 12 races, and that is, you know, 2/3 of the races so far this season. Obviously, as I said, he's 11-1 down in qualifying against Bottas, which is not very good. And not only that, the thing that shocked me the most is when he was half a second behind in Monaco against Bottas. Bottas was also half a second behind against 18th position, but to be half a second again behind your teammate is not a good look for you. So that's why I'm giving Show a 3. I just think consistently finishing at the bottom, qualifying 20th on multiple occasions, is the reason why I'm going to give Show a 3. The audience gave Show a 3 as well, so they agree with me on that, and they gave Bottas a 4. So a little bit harsher on Bottas, but I do have to understand that one. Time to move on to Aston Martin this season, and I'm going to start with Lance Stroll. My rating for Lance Stroll is a 5.5 out of 10 this season. Now, please calm down before you kill me in the comments below. I do have my reasonings for Lance Stroll. Obviously, I'm not saying he deserves the Aston Martin seat, but if you look into the races this season, look into a bit more detail, he hasn't actually done as bad as some people are probably claiming he is to be. I mean, just a little bit of stats. He's finished in the points 5 out of the 12 races this season, getting 2 7th place finishes and also a 6th place finish, which is really good for Lance Stroll this season. He's also consistently, in recent races, beating Fernando Alonso, not just in terms of races, but also in qualifying. I'll get onto Fernando Alonso in a minute. But the reason why I'm not giving Lance Stroll any higher is that when he has a bad race, it's a really bad race. I mean, a few mistakes this season which has been completely avoidable, such as Saudi when he just went into the wall. That was completely avoidable. And also when he hit the back of Ricciardo's car. I know it was a bit of an iffy situation with everyone stopping, but considering no one else hit each other and he was the only one to hit another car, it's still not great for Lance Stroll. And obviously finishing outside of the points in 7 races is still not exactly great. I think a 5.5 is a fair rating in my opinion. My rating for Fernando Alonso is a 6.5 out of 10. Alonso had an amazing start to the season. He finished 5th, 6th and 7th to get great points for the Aston Martin team. It seemed like maybe they weren't finishing the podiums, but they were going to be a very upper midfield team. It seemed like they were even better than Mercedes at the start of the season. But I must admit, Alonso's recent form since around Imola has been quite shocking. He's finished in 18th and 19th places in races, which you would never expect from someone like Fernando Alonso. And also he has consistently recently finished behind Lance Stroll in races and qualifying, just like I said. You know, considering how much he was beating Lance Stroll last season, it's quite shocking to see how far he's come down, along with the car obviously as well. But I think those 6 races in the first half of the season is why I'm giving Fernando Alonso the 6.5 rating which he I think deserves. Those first 6 races were phenomenal by him, and I know he's lacking a bit of form recently, but I do think it will come back, especially after Silverstone Grand Prix where they finished 8th and 7th. The audience also gave Lance Stroll 5.5 and they gave Fernando Alonso a 7 out of 10 as well. Time to move on to the Alpine French pairing, which has been quite interesting this season to say the least. I'm going to give Esteban Ocon a 6 out of 10 rating. I've been very mixed between a 5 and a 6 rating for Ocon this season. I mean, he automatically gets minus points for that crash in Monaco. What on earth was he thinking there? But I must admit, Ocon hasn't actually driven too badly this season, given the car he has been given, which is obviously a tractor. He's currently 8-4 in qualifying against Pierre Gasly, or Pierre Gasly, as everyone likes to say, and also 7-5 in races as well. And he's also finished in the points positions 3 different times, claiming 3 separate points this season, finishing 10th 3 times. So I don't think it's been a bad season for Ocon, but I am going to move on to Gasly as well now. I'm giving Pierre Gasly a 6 out of 10 rating as well as Ocon. You might be wondering, how on earth does Pierre Gasly get the same rating as Ocon, despite me stating that Ocon is beating him not both in qualifying and races as well? Well, it comes down to the points and the positions they have finished this season. Despite the fact that Ocon overall has been beating Gasly this season, Gasly is currently ahead in the standing. He's currently gained 6 points this season, with 2 10th place finishes and 2 9th place finishes as well. This is while Ocon has only finished in 10th place 3 times, only gaining 3 points as well. So in the races that really mattered and the races that Alpine could get points, Gasly has proven to be the driver that can get those results better than what Ocon can. I also believe that Gasly is the better teammate of the two. Not necessarily the better driver, but I do believe he's the better teammate. So that's why they both get a 6 out of 10 for me this season. The audience gave Ocon a 5, which is probably deserving after that Monaco crash in itself, and also gave Pierre Gasly a 6.5 rating. It's time to head to the McLaren pair now, and this is where my opinion could get a bit spicy with some of you, but please hear me out first. I'm going to start with Lando Norris, and Lando Norris I'm going to give an 8.5 out of 10 rating. Now, please let me explain before some of you might kill me in the comments below. Norris has driven fantastically this season, there's no doubt about it. He's got 7 different podium positions, which is the second most out of everyone apart from obviously Max Verstappen, and also got his first win this season. And also for the first time in his career, he is currently second in the drivers' standings at 171 points, and really the only one that has challenged Max, at least consistently throughout the season. But the reason why I've only given Norris an 8.5 and not like a 9 or 9.5 is because he should have more. He should have more with the car he has been given. Now let me explain briefly. Silverstone, Austria, Canada, Spain. 4 races that Lando Norris should have potentially won this season. Now I know it's not always going to go your way, like Canada with the safety car, so you could possibly take that one out. But even the sprint in Austria, Lando Norris should have more wins this season than he has. And I just think with the car he's been given, which is arguably the fastest car on the track, Lando Norris should be producing more wins than just the 1 win he has this season. He still has drove fantastically this season, like I said, no doubt about that. But the small little mistakes here and there, which has cost him multiple wins, multiple poles, and I just think Lando Norris needs to up his game a little bit, especially with the car he's been given. He can't keep falling behind Max Verstappen. But that is why I'm giving Lando Norris an 8.5. Oscar Piastri, I'm going to give an 8 out of 10 rating. I almost gave an 8.5, but I couldn't quite bring myself to bring in the same score as Lando Norris based on current results this season. Oscar Piastri is a young sensation on absolute fire right now. He's currently 5th in the drivers' standings, above people like George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and even Perez. He also has more points than he already did last season. We're only up to the halfway point, so I'm expecting him to get way more than he already does. Now, whilst he is 3 to 9 in races and also qualifying this season against Lando Norris, I think he's been very unfortunate as well. The penalties in both Imola and Austria, I think, really cost Piastri this season from potentially getting more podiums and potentially wins than he deserves. And I also need to talk about Silverstone. He honestly should have won that race. His pace in that race was by far the fastest on the track. Even in the tricky conditions, he absolutely went for it. And considering he's basically still a rookie, considering no one else came in, the fact that he stuck with Norris in those conditions was absolutely amazing. Even caught up to Norris at points as well. As a race driver, he might almost be better than Lando Norris, but considering Lando Norris has 7 podiums and a win and is currently second in the standings, while Piastri only has 2 podiums, I have to give Lando Norris a slightly higher score. The audience gave both of them an 8.5, which I do totally understand as well. Now that we are halfway through the video, I just want to remind you to like and subscribe, and also leave your comments down below of what you generally think about my rating so far, and what you would also rate these drivers so far. Our opinions are going to differ, so please just don't leave hateful comments in the comments below. I'm fine with disagreements, and I'm fine with explaining my ratings a bit more and also discussing with you in the comments below, but no hate allowed is all I'm going to say. But I'm fine with obviously disagreements. Everyone's going to disagree here and there, but hopefully we can just have some discussions in the comments below, so get commenting right now. I'm going to move on to the Haas pair now. I'm going to start with Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen, I'm going to give a 5.5 out of 10 rating overall. Now, I was close to giving him a 6, but when I look overall this season, how he's done compared to his teammate Hulkenberg, I just can't give him any more than that. I mean, let's start with the obvious. Look how dangerous his driving was at the very start of this season. I mean, left and right, he was causing people to go off track, he was causing DNFs. He's on 12 penalty points as a result of it, 1 more away from being disqualified for a race overall. Kevin Magnussen's his highest finish was 8th place in Austria, I believe, where he got 4 points. But apart from that, he's only finished in a points position one other time, which was Australia. He's also never made it to Q3, with his highest qualifying performance being 12th place. So that's the only reason why I can give him a 5.5. He's had a few good races this season and has definitely helped his teammate Hulkenberg in certain races. But overall, when I look at the whole season as a scope, yeah, I can't give him any more than that. I'm going to give Nico Hulkenberg my first 9 out of 10 rating so far. In my opinion, by far one of the most impressive and surprising drivers this season so far. He has excelled and excelled in so many races. I mean, just look at the past 2 races. He's got 2 6th place finishes back to back. In the last 2 races, he has gained more points than Sergio Perez has throughout his last 6 races. He's generally working miracles with a car that should not be this high up the grid. I mean, qualifying P6 in Silverstone and keeping that position was so impressive, and he's been one of my favourite drivers on track this season. Hulkenberg has gathered a whopping 22 points for the Haas team this season and is currently 11th in the standings, only 1 point behind Stroll, who is 10th in the standings. He's also got the car, a Haas car by the way, into Q3 6 times this season. That alone should give him a 9 out of 10, let alone the finishes and points he's been getting for the Haas team. I think this is a very well deserved 9 out of 10 rating. The audience also gave K-Mag a 5.5 and gave Hulkenberg an 8 out of 10 rating. Time to move on to the Williams pair now. I'm going to start with Alex Albon. Alex Albon gets a 7.5 out of 10 rating for me this season. Albon is doing what Albon always does, putting that Williams car in places that it should not be able to get. He's got 4 points currently, finishing 2 9th place finishes in both Monaco and obviously the British Grand Prix. He's also got into Q3 3 separate times this season, which is a quarter of the races so far. And considering how bad the Williams car is, that is a phenomenal achievement by Alex Albon. He's also qualified multiple times in 12th and 13th place. So he is constantly getting these high positions and constantly getting near points. And considering how bad that car is, it's just so good from Alex Albon, as usual from him in that Williams car. In my opinion, just like Hulkenberg, he is over-delivering a car that should not be getting those positions. So I have to give Alex Albon a 7.5 overall this season. Possibly even could push him to an 8 as well. Now it's time to move on to my favourite driver, Logan Sargeant. And I'm going to have to give Logan Sargeant a 3 out of 10 this season. I'm sorry, but it has to be done. He has been the weakest driver on the track this season. I'm going to go through a bit of a list of reasons why. Yes, he had a great race in Silverstone where he finished 11th place, one of his best races this season. But his only good race this season was that. His best result before that was 15th place, and that's even with 4 DNFs in Monaco. So basically, he still finished second to last. Not only that, he got lapped twice in Monaco. Actually, scrap that. Not only that, he's been lapped twice by the leader in 4 separate races this season. That is a third of the races so far this season. He's also qualified 20th 4 times and qualified 19th 2 times, along with an 18th, 17th and 16th place in qualifying. So basically, he's qualified in the bottom 2 6 different times this season. Like, considering how well Alex Albon is doing, and Logan Sargeant, I believe, has a similar car in terms of specs and that, I just don't understand how he's doing so poorly. I mean, just reading those stats out make me realise that it probably should be lower, to be honest, but I'll be nice due to the Silverstone Grand Prix and give him a 3 out of 10. The audience gave Albon a 6 out of 10 and they gave Logan Sargeant a 3 out of 10 as well. I'm going to move on to the Mercedes team now, and I'm going to start with George Russell. George Russell gets my second 9 out of 10 rating. George Russell is another driver that has seriously impressed me this season and has done better than what I thought he was going to do this season. Not only has he improved a lot this year, he's also beating Hamilton in pretty much every way possible this season. He's currently beating Hamilton 10-2 in qualifying and 7-4 in races across the season so far. George Russell also has 2 pole positions this season, which is the second driver to have multiple pole positions apart from Max Verstappen. He also has 1 race win in Austria, and he also has 2 podium positions in Canada and also obviously Austria. And also he was very unlucky in Silverstone. Just in the dry conditions, he was very much pulling away from Hamilton, and I think he could have been on for a podium finish depending on how the end played out for him. Hamilton was very much struggling to get into Q3. Russell was still consistently getting points for the team at the start of the season when the Mercedes car was just not very good. So I think a 9 out of 10 is a very fair rating for George Russell. Lewis Hamilton, I am going to give a 7.5 out of 10 rating. Now, I know what you're going to say. Now, Hamilton has obviously looked more like himself since the Canadian Grand Prix. He's obviously got a win in Silverstone, which is one of my favourite wins this season. He's got a podium place in Spain and finished 4th twice in Canada and Austria, respectively. But we've got to remember, he was struggling loads at the start of the season. He qualified 18th place, literally like 6 hours after he got a podium in the sprint race as well. He's been getting knocked out in Q1 and Q2, which is shocking considering Russell was constantly getting into Q3 as well. Even though he is only 1 point behind Russell, I genuinely believe that is not an indication of how good that both drivers have been this season. I believe generally that Russell has been a better driver than Hamilton this season and overall has been getting the better results than Hamilton. So yeah, that's why I'm giving Hamilton a 7.5. When you look at the whole season as a whole, 8 bad races compared to 4 good races, I gotta give him a lower mark for that. The audience gave Russell a 9 and Hamilton at 8.5. Personally, I disagree, but I'd like to hear why maybe people would give Hamilton an 8.5 in the comments below. And I'm also going to start with Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo gets a 5.5 out of 10 rating for me. I believe Ricciardo's been very in the middle of the pack this year. He's constantly been outperformed, outraced and outqualified by his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. And I also believe that he's just struggled to keep consistency this season. I mean, look at Miami, for example. Brilliant in the sprint where he managed to qualify P4 and actually keep that position throughout the race. But then as soon as it came to the race itself, qualified P18 and was nowhere to be found in the race. Ricciardo is also currently down 3-9 in qualifying compared to Yuki Tsunoda, and also down 4-7 in races as well. Ricciardo has definitely had his moments this season. Like I explained, the Miami sprint was a really good example. He's also finished 8th and 9th places this season, and obviously qualifying P5 in Austria was a phenomenal achievement as well. But Ricciardo has only got point positions in 3 separate races, and that is including the sprint races as well. So that's 12 races plus 3 sprint races, which include 15 races overall. That's not a good look for Ricciardo, especially when he wants that Red Bull seat. Time to move on to Yuki Tsunoda, and Yuki Tsunoda gets my 3rd 9 out of 10 rating for this season so far. Yuki Tsunoda has seriously impressed me this season, a lot more than I thought he would. Take out his dive bomb at the very beginning of the season in Bahrain and his mistake in Canada, he's gone above and beyond what is expected of him this season. He has scored points in an impressive 6 out of 12 races this season, so half the races this season. And that includes 2 7th place finishes in both Miami and Australia as well. That is a seriously impressive result. He has constantly been scoring points throughout the season, as I already said, in 6 out of the 12 races, and has constantly been doing way better than Daniel Ricciardo this season. So that's why Yuki Tsunoda also gets a 9 out of 10 rating as well. Now this is where I think I very much disagree with my audience. They gave Ricciardo a 6 out of 10, which I can maybe see, but only gave Yuki Tsunoda a 7 out of 10 rating. I don't know what my audience was thinking, but if you think my opinion is washed, please go to my Instagram and blame every single person there, because that is a criminal score for Yuki Tsunoda. Now it's time to move on to the final team that I'm going to discuss, Red Bull. This is where I'm going to very much praise one driver and also destroy one driver. Let's start with the praising one driver, shall we? I'm going to give Max Verstappen my highest grade and give him a 9.5 rating. Not quite a 10 because of, I think, a few iffy mistakes here and there, especially Austria. But overall, I'm going to give Max Verstappen a 9.5. Max Verstappen to me this season has not only proven to me why he was one of the best race drivers on the track right now, no, the best race driver on the track right now, he's one of the best racing drivers in all time. I mean, even when he's got the 2nd or 3rd best car, he still gets the wins, he still gets the poles, he still gets the podiums, and that is why he keeps extending his lead and is currently 74 points ahead in the driver's standing, and is currently why Red Bull are currently 1st in the constructors. He currently has 9 podiums in 12 races this season, and one of them was just due to a mechanical failure with the car. He also has 7 wins this season, and is the only driver to get more than 1 win this season. 7 wins in a car that since Miami has not been good, has been incredible. His consistency to constantly get these positions has been amazing, and he has rightfully deserved my highest grade so far this season. Now it's time to move on to the last driver, which is Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez, I'm going to give a 4 out of 10 rating. Now you got to look at the whole season, and this is the reason why I give Perez a 4 and not lower than that. Perez in the first 6 races did what Perez needed to do. He got the podiums when needed, he got the points where needed, and he was getting the points to help Red Bull and the constructors against their rivals. But since Miami, I don't know how to put it, but Perez has been terrible. He has never out-qualified Max this season. I read a stat this season, I think it might be like without DNFs or whatever, that apart from the Australia race, he has never beaten Max in a race and never out-qualified Max Verstappen. So he's something like 26-1 or something like that. Even when Max had a tyre puncture for half a lap, had to pit and change, had a 10-second time penalty, he still finished ahead of Perez, who was behind a Haas car. But not only that, he is 137 points behind Max Verstappen. Now you may think, at the end of the season, that's not too bad. We're at the halfway point of the season. Perez is also 6th in the drivers' standings in the Red Bull car, and is very likely to be 8th by the next race, with Russell Hamilton only being respectively 7 and 8 points behind Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez in the last 6 races has got a combined amount of points of 15. How on earth Red Bull are still first in constructors need to be hailed onto Max, because oh my gosh, that is shocking from Perez. He's been out-qualified by Logan Sargent on 5 separate occasions. I was slandering Logan Sargent earlier, but wow, is that shocking from Perez. Again, the word shocking just keeps coming to my mind whenever I think of Sergio Perez this season. So, in overall, the audience gave Max a 9 and Sergio Perez a 6 out of 10. Don't know how, I'm not going to argue with it. Move on from Perez, please. So here is an overall list of how I would rate the drivers this season from worst to best based on my current ratings. Now I do look at it and I go, maybe I should move a few around, but this is how I base it on the ratings as well. So I'll let you have a minute to indulge in my ratings. So there we go, that is my current grading for every driver this season. I do bounce around between a few others, as in grades wise, but I'm very confident with my rating so far. Did you think my ratings was fair? Did you think any driver deserved a higher or lower rating? Please leave your thoughts down in the comments below. And also please make sure to like and subscribe these videos. They do take a while to make and I appreciate your time watching this video. So I hope you enjoyed it and I'll see you in the next one.